Welcome to this explainer on one of history's absolute wildest survival stories. We are talking about the endurance miracle, Shackleton's impossible survival. Today, we're going to dive right into what is essentially a cinematic masterclass in grit, exploring exactly what it takes to survive when nature literally strips away every single advantage you have.
Okay, let's just start this off right at the climax. Picture this. It's May 20, 1916, and we're on the freezing, remote South Georgia Islands. The captain of the Stromness whaling station is sitting down, just comfortably eating his dinner, when a man bursts into the room shouting about some people outside who defy belief. The captain steps out, and what does he find? 3 emaciated ghosts. They are incredibly thin, their faces are totally hidden behind these massive overgrown beards, looking, and probably smelling, as if they haven't bathed in years.
So, naturally, the captain asks for their names. The man in the center looks right at him and delivers this staggering quote, "I am Ernest Shackleton." The captain just stands there in totally stunned silence. He hadn't heard that name in 2 years. Shackleton and his entire crew of 28 men were presumed dead, totally lost to the unforgiving Antarctic ice. And yet, here he was, standing right in front of him, about to tell a story of surviving negative 40-degree temperatures that completely defies all logic.
But to really understand how he got there, we got to rewind a bit. Back in August of 1914, Shackleton's trans-Antarctic expedition left England on a custom-built, heavily ice-resistant ship called the Endurance. The grand goal? To cross Antarctica on foot. Ambitious, right? But by January, things went south, fast. Moving just a single kilometer was like fighting a literal war against the ice, and the ship became completely trapped in the Weddell Sea. By November of 1915, those massive, violently shifting ice sheets acted like a giant vice. They crushed the Endurance to splinters with sounds literally like cannon fire, until the ship sank straight down into the freezing depths.
Now, this next part is absolutely crucial. The very moment that ship went down, Shackleton executed a masterclass in crisis leadership. He made a definitive, no-nonsense announcement. The Great Exploration Mission, officially over. The brand new mission, get all 28 men home alive. Honestly, when everything goes wrong, letting go of your original goal to focus entirely on immediate survival is the ultimate leadership pivot. Remember, he didn't have a radio, he didn't have a telephone. They were 100% cut off from the rest of the world. But that immediate mental shift from explorer to survivor set the tone for everything that was about to happen.
And the sheer terror of their new reality, it's genuinely hard to overstate. They established what they called the ocean camp, but not on solid ground. Nope, they pitched their tents directly on top of massive, violently cracking ice sheets floating right on the ocean. For months, they lived on this incredibly precarious surface, just sleeping huddled tightly together, trying to share whatever warmth they could. And the craziest part? Without even realizing it at first, this massive block of ice ended up drifting 2,000 kilometers in completely the wrong direction.
Oh, and they were doing all of this in temperatures that plummeted to negative 40 degrees Celsius. Just try to wrap your head around that level of cold. As their already meager food supplies started vanishing, their daily rations dropped to a single biscuit, a little bit of cocoa, and some canned meat. They had to heavily supplement this with whatever penguins and seals they managed to hunt. And getting drinking water? Well, they had to put chunks of ice into a tin can and stuff it inside their jackets, relying purely on their own body heat to melt the ice just to get a few freezing gulps.
So how on earth do you keep a team sane in those impossible conditions? Well, Shackleton basically wrote the playbook on managing team psychology. He established extremely strict daily routines to keep their minds occupied. Get this, he even organized football games out on the ice, having the men play right alongside the sled dogs. And perhaps most controversially, but absolutely essentially, he consistently lied to them about their food rations. He knew for a fact that a loss of hope would kill them way faster than the freezing cold ever could. It is a profound lesson in managing morale when the deck is entirely stacked against you. Eventually, that floating ice camp started breaking apart violently, which forced the crew into their tiny little lifeboats. Finally, on April 15, 1916, which, by the way, is nearly a year and a half after they first got stuck, they actually touched solid ground at Elephant Island. But any joy they felt was incredibly short-lived. Elephant Island was completely desolate. There wasn't a single bird in sight. And far more importantly, it sat completely outside of any known shipping routes. Literally no one was ever going to accidentally sail past and rescue them. To find help, Shackleton realized they had to take matters completely into their own hands. He took 5 of his absolute best men and decided they would cross 1,300 kilometers of open ocean to reach the whaling stations on South Georgia Island. And
They were going to do this in a tiny, open, hand-rowed lifeboat. Just wow. So, leaving 22 men behind with a promise to return, these 6 guys set out into what is widely considered the absolute most treacherous stretch of water on the entire planet. Just picture this terrifying journey for a second. They were navigating the infamous Drake Passage smack in the dead of the Antarctic winter. We are talking about massive 12-meter-high waves constantly threatening to just swallow their tiny boat whole. To put that into perspective, that's like a 4-story building of freezing water crashing down on you over and over. This Pacific stretch of ocean is quite literally a graveyard, where an estimated 20,000 sailors had previously lost their lives. For 2 solid weeks, they battled the elements, hand-rowing in completely exhausting 4-hour shifts, and eating cold food lying down because there wasn't even enough room in the boat to sit up straight. And keep in mind the sheer, unimaginable physical exhaustion they were already dealing with. I mean, before they even hit the water, they had manually dragged these 1,000-kilogram lifeboats across the summer ice, which had softened into this horrible, slushy, treacherous mess. They were already physically broken. They were starved. They were running on absolute fumes when they began rowing across that deadly ocean. Then, miraculously, they hit land on May 10, 1916. But of course, landing on South Georgia Island wasn't the end of the nightmare. They landed on the wrong side. The whaling station was all the way on the opposite coast. So to get there, Shackleton and 2 of his men had to do the impossible yet again, hike 40 kilometers over completely unmapped, treacherous, glacier-covered mountains. They climbed up one peak only to hit a dead-end cliff, basically forcing them to turn all the way around. They climbed 2 more punishing peaks before finally, on their 4th attempt, looking down and spotting the Stromness whaling station. But meanwhile, don't forget, 22 men were still waiting back on Elephant Island. For months, they survived under overturned lifeboats, which they basically used as these makeshift shelters to block the howling Antarctic winds. Shackleton had left his highly trusted second-in-command, Frank Wild, in charge of the group. Under Wild's leadership, the men established this grim but highly functional routine of hunting penguins and seals just to stay alive, trusting entirely that their leader was going to keep his promise and return with a ship.
The loyalty forged on that ice led to a truly powerful daily routine. Every single morning, without fail, Frank Wild would wake the men up, look out at the completely empty frozen horizon, and shout this exact quote: "Get ready, Shackleton is coming today." It just speaks volumes about the unbelievable, unwavering faith that crew had in their captain. Despite the endless months of total isolation and freezing starvation, they literally never stopped believing he was coming back for them.
Back in civilization, Shackleton was frantically trying to organize a rescue. He managed to get a boat from the Chilean government, but the ice around Elephant Island was just impenetrable. He tried once, twice, 3 times, and was completely forced to turn back by the ice each time. Finally, on August 30th, 1916, on his 4th desperate attempt, he found a break in the ice. He carefully approached Elephant Island, scanning that bleak shoreline for any signs of his stranded crew. And the result? 0. That is the most absolutely staggering statistic of this entire explainer. 0 deaths out of a 28-man crew. Every single man that Shackleton had left on Elephant Island was alive. Think about that for a second. Through the ship sinking, the 2,000-kilometer drift on cracking ice, the desperate boat journeys, and the intense starvation, Shackleton fulfilled the exact promise he made the very day their ship went down. He brought every single one of his men home. So as we wrap up this incredible historical masterclass, I want you to consider this. When nature takes absolutely everything away, your shelter, your food, your warmth, your path forward, is sheer absolute resilience our greatest human tool? Shackleton's story is an unbelievable reminder of the completely unexplored depths of human willpower. Think about how you might handle the truly impossible, and let this astonishing survival story remind you of just how much we are truly capable of